Cosmo the God, aka Eric Taylor, hacked the director of the CIA, leaked classified information about the Obamas and the Kardashians, strong-armed, experienced Russian hackers, stole from trillion-dollar companies, was hunted by the FBI, and got arrested, all before his 16th birthday. But this kid wasn't after money or fame. He did it all for the thrill, because he wanted to make a political statement to the world. These days, he's made a remarkable turnaround and now acts as a do-gooder, protecting others from the never-ending cyber threats. Who is he? How did he do it? And how did the FBI catch him? Let's find out. What were you doing when you were 11 or 12 years old? Button mashing on an Xbox controller? Well, so was Eric Taylor. One day, while playing as usual, his game unexpectedly got cut short due to the actions of another player. All his progress was lost, and Taylor was furious. So he decided to figure out why his game was interrupted. This would prove to be the first step in a short but destructive career hacking computers. Eric discovered how to access the accounts of other Xbox players, which sparked a fire in his belly. And as he confessed in an interview, it made him feel powerful and important.
Just imagine being 12 and having the power just to take anybody off of your video game. I felt a lot of power.
He progressed away from his Xbox network and began breaking into other types of companies. Now, I know what you're thinking. This kid isn't even old enough to get behind the wheel of a car, so how on earth is he capable of hacking elaborate systems? That's exactly what everybody else thought too, and a significant reason as to why he had so much success. Who would expect a young, innocent California kid to ruin a large digital framework at the click of a button? That's why he became such an extraordinary social engineer. For anyone who needs a quick refresher, social engineering is, in a nutshell, manipulating people. An expert social engineer uses deception to persuade individuals into divulging confidential information. And since Eric had his youthful innocence on his side, he got away with far more than most seasoned social engineers ever could. What's more is that he didn't really care about the consequences. In his own words,
I had nothing to lose back then, to be honest. That's all I was thinking, was I had nothing to lose.
As soon as he got a taste for sneaking his way through corporate computer systems, Eric, or as he soon dubbed himself, Cosmo the God, had no end in sight. He'd infiltrate various websites and retrieve data about people who regularly visited those places, Netflix, PayPal, and a few others too. Once he was in the back end, Cosmo could steal all kinds of information. Names, addresses, social security numbers, and with that info under his belt, he reset their passwords and then used their accounts however he saw fit. Worldwide, there was a hacker attack every 39 seconds, and as Cosmo grew older, he was responsible for more and more of them. Cosmo then joined a hacking group called UG Nazi. Along with the group's other members, one of which was known as Mir Islam, otherwise known as Josh the God, Cosmo cracked into a number of high-profile and high-value companies' websites like Amazon, Apple, AT&T, and Netflix. Although keeping in line with their profile as unbreakable tech companies and not wanting to scare off customers, the conglomerates often denied any breach of security at the hands of Taylor and his associates. One Amazon spokesperson explicitly dismissed the accusations, affirming that the security of Amazon customer accounts is one of our highest priorities. If you ask Eric Taylor, however, you'll get a completely different story. The multi-billion-dollar social media giant Twitter also fell victim to Cosmo. Twitter went totally offline for about an hour back in 2012. This act, just one of the thousands of attacks that regularly seek out high-income companies, banks, governments, and the like, contributed to a much larger and more pressing, and still growing problem. Cybercrime costs the world about $600 billion a year. Okay, so Taylor has been cracking into A-level company servers and stealing information, but that's not what he became most renowned for. Taylor then transitioned into his niche, targeting celebrities and politicians, and then sharing their personal information online for the world to see and judge. Before we dive into who he exposed, let's establish how he managed to do it in the first place. The methods, in this case, were a little out of the ordinary. If you've ever seen another one of our hacker-related videos, you'll recognize the majority of elite hackers reside in Eastern Europe. Those based in Russia are actually the fastest. Cosmo was aware of a group of Russian hackers that owned a website, one of which had social security numbers, credit reports, addresses, and more on the menu. That Russian website was known as ssndob.ru. It took the comprised user accounts from a data broking giant named LexisNexis and used those accounts to hijack personal and financial details of millions of Americans. You'd assume that Cosmo would reach out and team up with these foreign black hats to gain access to that expansive database, or simply purchase the information. Well, quite the opposite, actually. He hacked the hackers. He broke onto their website and then blackmailed them, threatening to expose their secrets. Rather than put up a fight, they just allowed Cosmo free reign to the information. Now he had a treasure trove of social security numbers and truckloads more to play with. Surprisingly, social security numbers may only net a cybercriminal a lowly $2 each. The most lucrative pieces of personal data are health records and passport information, which can sell for well over $1,000. Why? Well, it's because they can be used to create fake IDs. However, Cosmo's reasoning differed. He wasn't planning to resell those identities. He was planning to send a message to the general public. Remember, all of this is going on while Eric was barely even old enough to graduate middle school. Once he'd infiltrated the Russian cybercrime server, the world was his oyster. In 2013, his notoriety skyrocketed. He and a number of other hackers on his clan set up a mischievous website called exposed.su. It was on this site that Eric Taylor published personal information of well-known celebrities for the world to see. Dozens of public officials and famous faces, including former First Lady Michelle Obama, the former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, former CIA Director John Brennan, reality TV star Kim Kardashian, President Trump, and infamous pro athlete and richest golfer in the world, Tiger Woods, among plenty of others. In addition to bringing these celebrities into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons, Taylor was also orchestrating a criminal technique known as swatting. In the eyes of a kid, there's reason to believe that this could have been carried out for the adrenaline rush, but in the eyes of the law, it's a very real crime that can have extremely dangerous consequences. So what is swatting? It's when the perpetrator, in this case Eric Taylor or his co-conspirators, would have a target in mind, a person. They'd then contact 911 operators in the target's area and report a false crime at the target's house, with the expectation that local police may respond to the scene with extreme force. Still, it wasn't the swatting that got Taylor into so much trouble, it was the data thievery. The average cost of data breaches in 2020 is estimated to be $150 million. Cyber hacking has a lot of money being passed around, and new hackers are trying to get a slice of the pie for themselves every single day. 300,000 new pieces of malware created over every 24-hour period, and the $15 billion US cybersecurity protection budget can only stop so many of them. However, unlike the majority of cyber gangs out there, Taylor maintains that his hacking group was not motivated by money. At its core, the reasoning was simple. Eric wanted to send a message, but what was the message? Taylor came forward and admitted that he was never financially motivated because I was just in it for the thrill and politically motivated. In his mind, the people he was going after deserved it. At least that's what he thought at the time. Years later, with the benefit of hindsight, his accounts have changed, although more on that in a moment. For now, let's discuss how it all so rapidly unraveled for the law-skirting technical whiz kid. Despite Taylor adding false walls on his website to make it appear as though the leaked information was coming from Russia, it didn't take the government long to realize that the source was in fact on American soil. An FBI operation dubbed Operation Card Shop was the first step to bringing him down. Card Shop aimed to squash identity theft and credit card fraud, and its method went a little something like this. The FBI established an online credit card fraud community known as Carter Profit in June 2010. They'd collect intelligence on the sellers and buyers, hope to physically identify them, and then capture them on the streets, preventing millions of dollars in potential financial losses. Operation Card Shop was a big success, resulting in 24 arrests. One of those arrests was Mir Islam, who was apprehended in New York City on June 26, 2012, after he attempted to withdraw money using a stolen ATM card. Taylor was arrested the same day. First, a SWAT team was sent into Taylor's home, and once they'd cleared the house, agents from the Secret Service and FBI arrived to initiate the arrest. On November 7th, some 5 months later, Taylor was sentenced to juvenile court. The outcome? Probation, which would last until his 21st birthday. He was, after all, just 15 years old at the time. Taylor pleaded guilty to multiple felonies, including credit card fraud, identity theft, and online impersonation. This probation wasn't run-of-the-mill, however. It was a hacker's worst nightmare. All of his electronics gone. The internet off limits. Access to cyberspace essentially had vanished. Once he'd been caught red-handed, it didn't take long for Taylor to have a change of heart about his actions. Hours after his sentencing, Taylor reached out to Krebs on security via FaceTime to apologize for his crimes. Fast forward to today, and he's now living in New York City, soon to be a parent, and has turned to a new chapter in his life. A perfect example of this turnaround came in late 2017 when Taylor personally offered a reward of $7,777 in Bitcoin for information on the real identity of Swatistic, which would lead to his arrest. Swatistic Mystic was responsible for over 100 swatting attacks. While Black Hat's income had no ceiling, White Hat hackers still earned over $19 million in bounties in 2018. So just because he's now on the other side doesn't mean that Eric is unable to rake in the cash. These days, Taylor works as a White Hat cybersecurity consultant for a startup company called Path, which uses blockchain to help companies ensure that their data services are protected and available worldwide. If you're looking to get your own cybersecurity net, Path's fees are on a case-by-case basis. To give you an idea, though, a smaller 40-person company would pay roughly $3,000 a month to an IT managed service provider, with a cybersecurity budget somewhere between $150 to $600 a month.